Hey everyone, welcome back to another Tic Tac Taiko. This is the first of a two-part mini-series in the Teaching Taiko category on what people like the most and the least about Taiko workshops. Before I start, I just want to mention that I'm trying out some new lighting. I might squint, things might look a little unusual, but we'll see what happens. We'll work through it together. Like I mentioned in my last Teaching Taiko video, I have access to the last 5 North American Taiko Conference survey results. That's the Taiko Conference itself and the workshops that it presented. That workshop survey had 2 types of questions. It had qualitative and quantitative questions. In other words, it asked people to say, what did you like? What didn't you like? What would you like to see more of? As well as, on this category, on this aspect, rate from 1 to 5. 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. You're probably very familiar with those types of questions. This data is immeasurably useful for telling what people like the most, what they like the least, suggestions they had that the instructors or the committee members may not have thought of on their own. And I'm going to use that data to present the things that people like the most and they like the least. But again, no names, no workshops. This is going to be very generic. This week, I'm choosing to pick the positive. So we're going to look at the top 6 things that people like in no particular order, because it's impossible to take the qualitative and the quantitative and figure out which one is on top because it's 2 different types of data. So I just picked the things that stood out the most, that had the most impact or were the most mentioned. But you know what the biggest like is? It's the like that you get when you click the like button down in the bottom corner of the video. It lets YouTube know you like the content. It lets me know you like the content. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. Okay, on to the list. Fun instruction, positive attitude. I mean, who doesn't like an instructor with a positive personality that makes for a fun and engaging and learning and open environment? Some people are naturally good at it, and others, like myself, admittedly, have to put a little bit more work into making that happen. But for those instructors who are able to do it and keep doing it for 1, 2, 3, 5 day-long workshops, those instructors have a tremendous amount of impact in a good way on their students. Instructor prepared. In my opinion, at the very least, for baseline instruction, an instructor should know what they're going to teach, the material, and generally what order they're going to teach it. That's the bare minimum. But let me give you some examples of how an instructor can go well above and beyond just that baseline, how they can truly be prepared. They can address questions that pop up, and believe me, questions always pop up in workshops. That's the nature of workshops. But they can address the questions without losing focus or getting sidetracked, because that's something very common, especially with newer instructors, taking a question and going down a different direction, usually to the detriment of what they originally planned. Or maybe they can anticipate questions because they know the material so well, they know what kind of questions generally get asked, or they know their type of instruction so well, they know what kind of questions people are going to ask as they teach. Or they have a system of how to shift people from drum to drum, like this group comes down, that group goes up, or some sort of serpentine system, whatever it is, it's a thoughtful and planned system of moving people where they need to be. Or they figured out what to do if the equipment or some of the equipment doesn't show up in the first 5, 10, or 15 minutes. A well-prepared instructor has figured out what to do in case of any of these, one or more of these. In fact, a lot of these I haven't even mentioned. They've thought this through, whether it's based on experience or just planning in advance. Meaning, context, history. No one can make a song or a drill or a dance that you learn have meaning. That kind of meaning has to come from within each of us. But if I'm teaching a dance and I say, this dance comes from here and this is why this is done a certain way, or this song that we're going to learn comes from this experience or these people, or this drill or these drills used to be done this way and this is why I changed them, this is how they've changed. Giving that kind of context, giving that kind of history gives opportunity for meaning to grow. Now, not every drill, every song, every dance is going to have meaning, and not every person who learns that with context and history will find meaning, but giving the opportunity for it can go a long way. pushed out of comfort zone. There is a category of people that specifically go to Taiko workshops to be pushed out of their comfort zone. They're not getting it or not getting enough from their classes or their groups or their teachers, and it's not critique about them. Maybe these people just want more than they're getting. However, there's also a category of people that go to workshops who do not want to have their comfort zones pushed. They're there to have fun, and that's absolutely fine. And of course, there's all the people in between those two categories. And it takes a great amount of skill to identify those who want to be pushed, those who do not want to be pushed, and then to push the people who want to be pushed. But it's more than that. Once you've identified those who want to be pushed, you're not talking about one person, usually. You're talking about several people with different personalities, different skill levels, who approach the instruction differently, who react to critique and feedback differently. That's difficult. And doing that well, while again, not pushing those who don't want to be pushed, that's an amazing amount of skill. But when it is done well, and it sometimes is done very well, it has more impact than probably anything else on this video. Drills to take back. This is probably the most self-explanatory one of all of the ones listed in this video. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but it's worth mentioning. If you learn a drill or a song or whatever that takes a lot of prep or is very complicated or just requires a lot to set up, it's probably not going to be the thing that a person takes back to their group or takes back to their house or home or practice space, whatever. Having things that are easy to set up, easy to remember, don't take a lot of prep work, and are fun, of course. Those are the things generally people will remember and continue practicing. It's not that you need to dumb down a workshop, like, okay, we're going to do only the simple things, but having some of those things to help people retain your content, there's nothing wrong with that. Handouts. I saved this one for last because handouts is an interesting story. At the last 5 North American Taiko conferences, every workshop that handed out a handout got a lot of praise and thanks for handouts. And for the workshops that didn't, the number one suggestion, not critique, but suggestion, was people wanted handouts. So this kind of tells me people like handouts. And it's interesting, isn't it? In a world of digital media, a physical piece of paper, something tangible, is what people really appreciate. And a handout doesn't have to be complicated. It could be a single sheet of paper with some text on it, or it could be double-sided with tons and tons of information. It could have notes. It could have things to remember. It could have patterns and musical notation. It could have drawings and references. It could have a URL even. But it's that physical piece of paper. People really feel like, as an instructor, you are respecting them. You are being thoughtful. Here's something I prepared for you in addition to my workshop. And even if they never look at that handout again, the act of giving it really seems to make people happy. Now, this isn't to say every workshop should have a handout, but I think every workshop instructor should consider having a handout. And so there you have the 6 most liked things from Taiko conference workshops. I would say Taiko workshops in general. Just because they're at conference doesn't mean that people want different things at non-conference Taiko workshops. And like I have said so many times in person, not just on this channel, this information is beneficial, whether you teach at Taiko conferences or not, whether you teach workshops or not, whether you teach at all or not. Even if you're just a student, this information lets you know what goes into teaching a workshop. It may even open some ideas and doors for you in thinking, oh, this is happening in my workshops. I really appreciate it. Or even, oh, you know what? This isn't happening. Maybe I can talk to someone to make it happen. Now, the next video in the series is going to be on the flip side, the things people like the least. I don't want to talk too much about that, but that video and this video together gives a really, really good syllabus on how to be an effective Taiko workshop instructor. So, until next time, keep on practicing and be well.